One last thing before we get started with our speakers, I'd like to sort of do a bit of an incubator poll. So just want to see where you guys are at in your experience on campus, whether you're coming here with some great ideas, or if you're coming here, completely nervous about getting involved on campus, having no idea what you want. So I'll just launch that right now and see what we've got. Okay, is that working? Can you guys see the poll? Great, I've never done this before, so. Okay, I'll give you guys about 30 more seconds. I'm seeing a few people not able to see the poll. That could be because you've got an older version of Zoom. If that's the case, what I'll do is I'll just run through the questions right now, and maybe you guys can post in the chat. So the first question is, have you participated in a sustainability initiative in the past? So it doesn't have to be on campus, anywhere you like. If you lived elsewhere in the world, it could be elsewhere, it's somewhere in Montreal. And the options are simply yes or no. Second question, are you considering getting involved with the RSN's incubator project? Don't worry, more information will come. I know I gave you guys a very brief introduction. Okay, a lot of yeses, a lot of people already involved in sustainability initiatives. Awesome. A lot of maybes for the incubator. Okay, I think once we give you more information too, that'll definitely help. Third question, do you already have a project idea in mind? Got a lot of splits here. We've got yes, sort of, and no, which is great. Ultimately, what we want to do is connect students with ideas to students who want to get involved and don't know where to start, to students who have a skill or a talent that they might want to share. So a split in that answer is awesome. And the last question is, would you like to get more involved on campus and in your community? Again, split, we've got yes, please, and I'm already active on campus in my community. Almost most of you. And then a few people have clicked other as an option. Anyone could share what they mean by other? I was curious to see what we might get here. Feel free to post in the chat or even raise your hand on Zoom if you want to participate. JP, yes.
I think I'm pretty sure I clicked other because I'm currently well, I'm an alumni and I've already graduated and I'm moving out of Montreal actually. But my work totally revolves around this kind of stuff, and so it was kind of like yes, no, but that's why I put other.
Yeah, great. Thanks for elaborating. Okay, guys, last question. What areas of sustainability are you passionate about or interested in learning more about? Again, feel free to raise your hand, post in the chat. We've got waste. I'm going to share the results with everyone. Waste, research and healthcare. Education, better resource allocation, and how to use tech for sustainability. Would anyone care to speak up and share a little bit more about what they're passionate about? Just give us a bit of a couple sentences. All right, maybe not. Okay, let's get started with the speakers. Thanks for sharing your thoughts in this poll. Paul, do you want to go ahead and introduce our first speaker?
Yeah, no problem. So first up, we have Kirk Lau. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. So Kirk is a PhD student in materials engineering at McGill and is the co-founder of the Recycling Pioneers, a nonprofit group building smart waste bins to monitor waste habits and educate the public. The group is working closely with Building and Grounds to help improve McGill's waste infrastructure and tackle difficult waste-related challenges. And I'll pass the floor on to Kirk to discuss more.
Thank you. I'm also here today with another co-founder, Samina.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, could you enable screen sharing?
All right, thank you. All right, so I'll kick off the presentation. So as we've been introduced, we are the Recycling Pioneers, and we are a student group of nonprofit, and we're trying to bring smart waste technology to campuses. So just next slide, thank you. So a quick introduction. So I'm Simina, and I'm joined by Kirk, which is another co-founder. Our third co-founder is Ms. Ghana, and we also have another permanent group member, Arneet. Yeah, thank you. So just to give you a little bit of an introduction to our mission, as you probably guessed already, we're really interested in waste. So the reason why we started this is because throwing waste at McGill can be quite confusing. The signage sometimes, we're not sure what goes where. There's a lot of waste stream confusion. It's not uniform from building to building, and there's really a lack of total public awareness. When we actually started the group, we gave out a little survey to students, and one of the questions was, do you find it easy to recycle on campus? And 2/3 responded no, which sort of confirmed our feelings. So this is on the side of the public, but if we go on the side of management, which includes the, like we were saying, we're collaborating very close with the Buildings and Ground Department. On their side, they also have limited data about the waste. So reports, diversion rates, recycling rates, it's very hard to get that type of data. So it's very hard for them to implement strategies to make waste management easier. So the problem really goes a little bit on both sides. One of the ways for them to get the very few data that they have is through waste audits, which happen once a year maybe, where they have to close down a whole building, hire people or get volunteers to literally go through all the trash in the building and weigh everything and count everything. And it's very time consuming and very costly. And at the end of the day, you get data that is not really representative of what happens across the campus. And also there's hundreds of bins, which is very difficult to manage. So because of this problem, our solution, if you can move to the next slide, is really tackling these two things at once. So the waste monitoring, which would be widespread to the whole campus, which would help more on the management side, so the Buildings and Grounds Department, and the waste education, which would be at select locations, and it would just be more towards the public. But in real life, what this actually translates to, if you want to go to the next slide, Kirk, please, is the use of sensors in the existing bins in order to not try to start from scratch. And also because for probably students who have been here for a while, you know that in the past 2 or 3 years, there have been a whole new batch of bins which have been newly designed. So as to not force the Buildings and Grounds Department to come up with a whole new set of bins that are smart bins, we decided to put sensors, so weight sensors and fill sensors inside the bin that send data to a server at which the Buildings and Ground Department has access to. And on the public side, we would use screens at select locations, maybe one per building or one per floor, which would display various the data that we have collected and various tips on how to better recycle. So moving on to the next slide. Just to give you a little bit of the history on how we actually got started on this project. Well, we all started with basically a case study. We all enrolled into a competition called Go Lead. And we randomly got assigned the case of improving recycling rates at McGill. And it was throughout the semester of winter 2019. And during that semester, we met with a bunch of stakeholders. We even did our own waste audit from trash at the Meccano cafeteria. You can see a picture of me and Kirk going through the trash. And we actually ended up winning the competition, which was great. And then we were actually asked to continue the program in summer 2019 and sort of work on our solution a bit more, try to make it more concrete. And I think at that time, there was a big trend in finding an app for everything. So our solution naturally involved an app, about like reward points and tips and signing in. But after long discussions with stakeholders, we quickly realized that it was not the way to go. So I'm gonna let Kirk continue the rest of our adventure.
Thanks, Amina. It was definitely a setback that all this work that we had put into at first even getting in contact. It was difficult to even get in contact with the people at Housing and Hospitality Services to begin the conversations about, would an app with rewards points even be helpful? Is this something we could implement? But by the time we finally got there, it became really clear, as Amina said, that this idea was impossible and impossible to implement, especially the aspect of the rewards points. And so we thought at that point the project was scrapped, but just from reaching out to all these different avenues, our idea of an app with smart points and maybe integrating smart bins caught the attention of Buildings and Grounds. And this was a pivotal moment for us because after one long, intense discussion with them back in 2019, they came forward with all these ideas and more specifically problems that they were dealing with on the management side of things, and how they would really like to have some kind of smart waste bin system on the back end helping them out to help improve the sustainability of buildings. And so we began collaborating with them, and the first real major project we began was to try to launch a capstone project in the mechanical engineering department to create some of the first prototypes for the weight sensors and the distance sensors in the bins. And thanks to the Sustainability Projects Fund, we were able to fund that capstone and get everything going. It was a bit of a hectic rush because everything had to happen within the first 2 weeks of the school year, because once the capstone projects begin for the year, there's no going back. Students expect to sign up for a project for their final year and then work on that through the rest of the year. However, as we all know, it wasn't going to be a normal year. And the designs and the work that the mechanical engineering team was able to put together was not completed. They weren't able to build a final prototype because school basically shut down and nobody was using anything in any buildings. It was a bit of a setback for us. But at the time, the McGill engine, so the startup incubator on campus, was offering money to provide a lot of groups on campus the ability to hire an intern for the summer, given the restriction that the internship had to be virtual. So with that, we were able to hire our software engineer, who later stayed on after the project finished. And he really helped us develop all the sensors, hardware, and get our website up and running and talking to our sensors. And the picture you see here is just an article that was put out towards the end of the summer when we were working on installing and testing this project out in empty buildings with nobody around. It was like a scene from a movie, walking around the buildings, because there would be old newspapers from the McGill Reporter just like floating around, and we'd pick up the newspaper and look at it, and it would say March 2020. But anywho, later in fall of 2020, we were able to hire a graphic designer to really help focus on the educational public display component of our project. So while also displaying real-time data, we want to be able to create something that will make people stop in their tracks as they throw things away and consider their habits or learn something new about where things should correctly go in the different waste streams. And we also had the graphic designer make some mock-ups of future ideas that we have not yet implemented, like the mock screen you see on the bottom right. The idea is if we could be receiving data in lots of different buildings, we could have buildings competing with one another. But that's a project for the future. Later, we hired a web designer to help us clean up our website and make it look more appealing. We finally were able to install our first flagship station actually at the end of this summer in the Choitier building. And if you go there right now, you'll be able to see our first bin with the screen, and the screen is displaying our website, which is talking to some of the sensors inside the bin. And then here on the right, you can see some pictures of our developed prototype, including the weight scale, which goes underneath each of the Rubbermaid bins that goes inside, and then our fill level sensors that are hidden at the top. A rough vision of what we hope to achieve in the future is for 2022, we want to complete a pilot run of establishing these flagship bins with screen in multiple buildings downtown. And thankfully, thanks to SPF, we were part of this larger block grant with Buildings and Grounds to improve McGill's waste infrastructure. And as a result, we now have the funding we need to begin this next journey of scaling up to more buildings downtown. By 2023, if all goes well, we hope to at least cover one entire building downtown with sensors and begin collecting data en masse. And assuming that is able to work out by 2024, we have thrown around the idea of expanding the public display component to elementary schools and CEGEPs more as an educational opportunity and just something to engage the public. Some advice for starting a new initiative. It's hard to summarize exactly like what pieces of advice will actually help without sounding too trite or cliche. But really, it's so important that you bring your ideas to stakeholders first. We spent, I don't know, 6 months developing our app, only to finally get in the room with housing and hospitality services and have the idea die within 5 minutes of talking to them. So it's really important, like coming up with lots of ideas is great, but getting in contact with stakeholders as you develop those ideas is super important. SPF was really helpful for providing us contacts and providing advice, especially when navigating all the different departments in McGill. As it's a large institution, so oftentimes without efforts like this, people aren't really talking to each other across different departments. And so SPF for us was a vital link to find people. And Another piece of advice is patience and persistence is the name of the game, especially if you're trying to implement institutional changes, which often outlive the timescales of our 2 to 4 year studies. It's really important to build a core motivated team, but you also should factor for time, especially when people graduate. And finally, when you pitch your idea to different groups, especially stakeholders, they want to hear a value proposition. And sometimes it's just cold, hard numbers about how much money they could be saving in a year if they implement something. But jumping right to those facts and those numbers can really help grab their attention and make them realize that whatever idea you've come up with has been thoroughly thought out and might be attractive to them. Finally, before I sign off, we are looking for more people to help join our team and help with the project. So we're seeking new leaders to help guide the project. And on the technical side, we're seeking electrical, mechanical, and software engineering help. We can provide professional growth beyond academia. It's an open volunteering project, so you can grow the way you want. But there are opportunities for grants, to conduct interviews, to be hiring, managing, and networking. And we can also provide mentorship to help you grow how you want. And that includes technical knowledge. You can email us there at recyclingpioneers3@gmail.com, or you can look at our website at recyclingpioneers.ca. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. That was some really great advice. Is Paul, are you back in the call or? No, okay. Anyway, so next up we have Juan Pablo Arellano, who is a recent McGill graduate who studied economics and environmental sciences. He currently works as a content director at Climate Science, which is a charity that creates climate solutions. He has some experience with SPF, where he applied, unfortunately, unsuccessfully, for a green roof on top of Solon Hall. And on his 4th try, he was able to secure SPF funding to create 2 part-time paid positions to take care of the SSMU daycare garden, as well as the campus crops garden. And I'll let him tell you a bit more about that.
Hi peeps, how's it going? Hope everyone's doing all right. Oh, this Paul showed up. Sorry. Hope everyone's doing all right. I'm here in Montreal. My name's JP. I use he, him pronouns, and it's a pleasure to speak with you folks. I don't have a whole presentation made. It was a bit last minute and a bit too busy, and I also didn't want to highlight any one of my specific projects that I was working on, but more so like give advice to folks here who are interested in potentially applying to SPF funding. If you have any idea, please talk to people about it and apply for SPF funding. They have millions of dollars and they are so willing to give it away. Like, they want to give you money. So if you have a good idea, do apply for it, but formulate it, talk to people about it, etc. So look, I worked on around 5-6 different SPF applications. Only one of them worked. And so it can be a little bit tricky. And I want to talk to you folks about why I think the ones that didn't work, and what could have changed and what I could have done better for them to be successful. So the first couple that I applied for were for some pretty big, large-scale projects. Like Jessica mentioned, me and a couple of other residents friends wanted to create a green roof on top of Solon Hall. One of the other ones was to have a greenhouse, a greenhouse run by the First People's House, to have more herbal and medicinal and native plants and stuff like that, but also be kind of educational downtown. Didn't work. And one of the other ones No, I don't even remember. But anyways, these were like multi-million-dollar projects, right? Like crazy, crazy expensive stuff. For these kind of things, it needs a lot of hard work. You know, you really have to talk to a lot of different stakeholders, get a lot of approvals before even thinking of applying. Something I had no idea about before. I'm like, yeah, this is a great idea. I'm sure they're going to say yes, and it's going to be easy, quick. 2 years, you know, green roof and Solon Hall. Unfortunately, McGill is like the rustiest machine out there and doesn't run very well and is really slow, to be totally blunt. But there are a couple of ways around that. So I would suggest that for your first project, if you are applying to the SPF, try and have something a lot try to see how you can measure the amount of impact for the least amount of money. You know, a greenhouse is a great idea, right? And it's beautiful and it'll, you know, distinguish McGill, etc., provide use to the students, but it's millions and millions of dollars, right? And that's not going to look great to people. They're not going to see a huge ROI, return on investment, from that for the McGill population. But other things, for example, like the leave a book, take a book things on campus, the little yellow boxes, fantastic idea, right? Gets to reuse books and get them to cycle around for a long period of time. And it probably cost them a couple $1,000s to make all of those boxes and put them around school, right? So key thing, think about bang for buck, right? How much impact can you have for every dollar being spent on your project? Something else that I learned with these early projects is that we had fairly large teams of fairly inexperienced individuals. That's not a really big part of it, but it was, you know, at least 6-7 people working on them, but nobody was bottom lining, right? Nobody was like, I'm leading this project, or me and this person, 2 people max are leading this project, right? Keeping people accountable, pushing individuals, getting people to actually do their work. Because when you don't really have a leader of the project, it's hard to have accountability, you know, it's hard to get people to do the work. It's hard to, you know, show that passion. Because sure, everybody in the group might be interested, but if you yourself don't demonstrate, hey, I'm putting a bunch of hours of work into this, you know, I'm going out there, I'm talking to these people, I'm creating this, I'm doing that, sending these emails, and trying to motivate your team, it's less likely for it to work. So I'd say smaller teams are better, and very, very passionate teams are better, specifically if they're led by 1 or 2 very passionate individuals. Something else, Kirk mentioned patience and endurance, I think, and I totally agree. As I said, McGill is awful at answering emails and getting things done and actually changing things for some reason, and we're a progressive university. But one thing you can do, if people aren't answering your emails, go to their office. Like, this stuff is publicly available. Literally walk up to their plate. Like, obviously, now that during COVID, that wasn't possible, but now it is for most people here and there. Literally go to their office. I remember I went to the grounds, building and grounds office like 5 times. I'd show up, hi, I want to talk to somebody. Can you please make me a meeting? And they'd be like, maybe you should come by tomorrow. You know, maybe Bob will be here, etc. And be like, okay, I'll be back tomorrow. Come back tomorrow, 9 in the morning. Hi, I'd love to have a meeting with Bob. You know, can you please, calling as well is fantastic, but sending emails is such a slow means of communication. And if they aren't replying, if they aren't taking your calls, literally show up to their office, like even, or professors or whatever. They all work downtown or at Mac, but it's a much faster means of communication, and it shows your dedication, right? It shows that that you're like, oh wow, this guy really wants to, you know, make this happen. You know, let's hear him out. Maybe they have some good ideas here and there. But yes, phone calls have worked much faster. Like, I remember I had to get soil delivered for campus crops, one of the gardens. Sending emails was just not working. It was taking months. One phone call, I got it in a couple hours. Not even kidding. One phone call and I got it in a couple of hours, a whole truckload of dirt. So a faster means of communication definitely gets things done a lot quicker. And I couldn't agree more with Kirk about talking to stakeholders. So, for example, my partner and I, one of our biggest projects that we worked on with the SPF was we want to create a library of things, because they had just released the large wave stream where you could apply for a couple $100,000 of funding, and we're like, wow, that's amazing. You know, what can we do? And the thing that came to our minds was a library of things. For those that aren't familiar with the concept, it's essentially a library of items that you can book or borrow, etc. Think frisbees, hammers, drills, crock pots, etc. Things you don't use regularly, but it's useful to have. But instead of every single individual owning their own drill, you can just borrow it, for free or whatever. And the SPF loved it. They loved it. They thought it was a great idea. They were like, and I was impressed. I was like, damn, we spent like 2 evenings writing this application, and it was so long, and it took a very long time, but because we were a bit last minute. But they really enjoyed it. They liked it. They wanted us to move on to the next stage. Unfortunately, COVID kind of happened as soon as we submitted it. But we hadn't talked to stakeholders. We hadn't talked to anybody. We didn't know anybody that was interested. And it didn't work because we couldn't find room. Like, I think, honestly, space is probably the most valuable commodity on campus. And when your projects involve space or, an actual physical room, it's really hard. So you have to convince someone somewhere to back your idea, provide you the space beforehand, and then you apply to SPF funding. You can tell them, like, look, don't BS them, but be like, I'm really confident that we could probably get this funding. You're not going to lose anything if you just hold on to this room for me, etc. And for space stuff, talk to building directors. They're the ones who get to say on what goes where and to whom. Like I mentioned, Wallace Seeley, I was working with him because we wanted to actually do the Library of Things in the basement of the SMU building, which he was totally down for, but COVID and stuff got in the way. But again, talk to people beforehand, do your application, and afterwards, don't let it sit. The SPF people aren't going to baby you. They're not going to hold your hand. They're not going to be like, oh, great idea, cool, we'll take it from here. No, you have to do the work. You have to put in the hours, and you have to put in the effort afterwards to really make this happen. Because if they're interested, fantastic, great, you get a green light. Submit the next part of your application if it's one of the bigger ones, etc. But that is a mistake that I got before. We had one of these accepted, and it kind of flustered out, fizzled out, and it ended up not working out. Yeah, and so those are my 2 cents. Sorry about my rants. I sometimes get frustrated with the inner workings of McGill, but it's a great institution, to be honest, and they do want to help. There are individuals who genuinely, truly want to help. And the more people you talk to, the better. Talk to professors, talk to your employers, talk to your friends, etc. People who you think might be interested, and they might not be able to help you out, but they might know people who might be able to help you out. A great person to talk to for anything sustainability related might be Ingrid Berker. She knows absolutely everybody on campus. You don't know her. She doesn't run the Redpath Museum, but she does external outreach for the Redpath Museum, but she's like part of McGill. She's been here for like 50 years, knows absolutely everybody. That's Ingrid Berker, and I'll put her name down there. If you folks want like to bounce off ideas or something, she is fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, does anyone have any questions about any of that or anything that I mentioned? If not, no problem. I'm gonna do a bit of a oh yeah, go ahead, Olivia or Martin.
I just have a comment. I think two great quality. You have a GP is you are a good communicator and you are very enthusiastic about the project. So I think that the two first thing when you want to drive a project like that. Good for you.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree more. You have to sell it. You have to convince people that it matters. And you if you are not like a good or feel comfortable or a little shy or whatever in front of other individuals, find somebody who isn't, and just convince them to talk to the person. They don't have to be interested in what you're doing, but get them to sell it. And like Kirk said, what matters most is money. McGill wants to save money and they want to reduce emissions because now they're actually accounting their greenhouse gas emissions. So if you can prove that this will reduce emissions and if you can prove that this will reduce costs, they might go for it.
Just to add to what Martin said, I think that being, a good communicator and really comfortable with your idea is important, especially to convince stakeholders and people who you want things from. And one of the ways I found have been really effective is doing exactly what JP is telling us to do, is to talk about it. Even if you get rejected, even if the people you talk to are not that interested in your idea, whether it's your mom, your friend, or someone at McGill, just the more you repeat your idea, the more feedback you get, the more it rings true or false in your mind, and the more you get to pick out the little things that aren't working with it. Thanks a lot for that, JP.
My pleasure. Yeah.
I have a question because I'm on the other side of I'm not, as you can see, I'm not a student. I'm a manager at McGill, but I'm interested. How hard is it for students to get the attention of the staff when you try to promote a project, or must not? Do you think do people listen to you, or what's the? Be honest, though.
In my
I don't mind.
experience, it depends. In my experience, it depends. I've had a lot of luck. I've had some really interested individuals, particularly in the sustainability office at SHIS, student housing, people in buildings and grounds are normally quite responsive because, you know, they think big picture, stuff like that. But it really depends. You have people that don't give a damn.
So you need to find the key person. The key person really make the difference. Okay.
But just by talking to folks, you'll find those key people. You know, you'll find those that are interested and are willing to help. Yeah. I just want to mention.
Go for it.
Oh no, go ahead, Olivia. Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, maybe to reduce the intimidation a little bit of speaking out, you know, to professors or people on campus who might be able to help you. My personal experience with getting involved in the community has been that people are a lot more interested to know what you care about than you or I personally initially thought. I was really nervous at first to come out with my idea and pitch it to my stakeholders, who in my case were independent business owners. And the interest I got and enthusiasm I got from them was really impressive. So sometimes just getting over that hump and just even trying with 1-2 people might surprise you. Although JP, you have experience on campus, so I imagine that's a little bit different as well. But go ahead.
No, but I totally echo that sentiment, 100%. Yeah. And the only other thing that I just wanted to mention, if anybody, since it didn't work, I'm a little disappointed, and I still think it would be a fantastic idea. If anybody is here to take on the mantle of this Library of Things project, I'm more than happy to help out and give you all the resources that I can provide. So think about it, reach out to me. I'll leave my email on the chat, but thanks for having me here. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Before we move on to our next speaker, I just want to let any students who might be interested in the incubator project know that during the holidays, before we meet up again in January and officially register for the incubator, you can use that time as a sort of brainstorming period to try and think about ideas and things that you might want to projects you might want to carry out on campus. So if any of the things that have come up here tonight and that will continue to come up with the rest of the event interest you, feel free to reach out to any of the speakers here and maybe start building on those ideas so that you come with some good ideas in January. Jess, would you like to introduce our next speaker?
Yes. Well, first off, thank you, JP, for that very valuable advice. Next up speaking, we have Robin Stein. Robin is a facility manager on campus and chemist by training, and is also a part of the Helium Recovery Project. In the McGill Magnetic Resonance facilities, helium is required to maintain their superconducting magnets, and the SPF has helped them install a helium recovery system, which allows them to recycle helium and also reduce greenhouse gases emitted, transporting it from the US. And I will pass it off to Robin.
Thank you. Let's see. Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm going to show a couple of pictures. So yeah, if you can let me share the screen. Hang on. Oh, I see. Because now
I made you the co-host.
Sorry.
So
no, got it.
work.
Okay. Yep. Okay, super. Yeah, thanks. So as said, yeah, my name is Robin. I work in the chemistry department and I'm staff. So I'm kind of presenting maybe a little bit the other side of the story. Well, also, so the project, as I say, that we're trying to do is implementing what's called a helium recovery system. System, you can probably figure out, is all that equipment that you're looking at. Recovery means reusing it, so that's all fine. And the question is, why do we care about helium? This project that we're trying to put together, we have put together, in fact, has been done by a set of staff members Tara Sprules and myself manage the instrumentation that depend on helium. And we have a lot of technical support and facility support from the building manager and auto mass and pulp and paper, and also the electronics and mechanical workshops there. So why we wanted to do this project is because, oh, there we go. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Why we wanted to do this project is because the technique that we use, nuclear magnetic resonance, depends on having very strong magnets. Very strong magnets require being cold, and the material that makes them very cold is helium. We used nuclear magnetic resonance in teaching and in research to find out what a chemist has made in the lab, what a material scientist has made, what kind of properties give a protein its particular function, how drug molecules interact with proteins, all kinds of stuff relating to molecular function, dynamics, and structure. But it all depends on strong magnets, just like magnetic resonance imaging, MRI does. So this means that in our lab, we were purchasing about 2,500 liters of helium every year. And helium is a really strange material. There's a lot of it. So perhaps at first glance, sustainability wouldn't be an enormous problem. But the thing is, there's a lot of it in stars. There's a lot of it on a sort of universal scale. On Earth, when uranium and other things decay, they generate helium as well. So if you're lucky and you have a natural gas field with a lot of uranium around that has decayed to give off helium, and that helium is trapped, then when you extract the natural gas, it's economically viable to also get helium. So it's not a very pretty process from the sustainability point of view. And in addition, there is only helium worth extracting in certain places on Earth. That's what these maps show. So all of our 2,500 liters of helium were being shipped up mostly from the yellow spots on this map down here. So we got a problem of a resource that's hard to get at, and that's hard to transport, and that's not very clean to deal with. In addition, the cost is a very strange number. Because it only comes from a few locations, there's only a few companies dealing with it, and the price can vary wildly. So can availability. If the truck gets delayed, but you need your helium now, what do you do? So to deal with sustainability issues, cost issues, and reliability issues, we wanted to recycle helium. So instead of having trucks come and delivering us helium to our loading dock, which we then put in a magnet, and then over months watch it evaporate into the air, we instead wanted to be able to take the helium, capture it in a copper pipe, transport it back into a recovery system, and then have helium that we could use again. And we managed to achieve this with the help very much from the Sustainability Project Fund, also from the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council, and the faculties of science in the Department of Chemistry. So how did we go about doing this? The same lessons that you've just heard were also applicable to us. The first thing was to sit down and think as much as possible about what you want. And to do that, we talked to everybody we could think of. We talked to our colleagues, NMR managers at other universities, facing the same challenges of getting and paying for helium. We talked to vendors of the system that we wanted to install. And we tried to identify funding sources. Now, to get funding, you've got to have a very well-expressed budget, and you have to be very clear on your motivation. And of course, for your funding applications, you have to match these. So of course, if you want money from the Sustainability Project Fund, you have to make a case based on sustainability, as well as being able to maintain the system in the future. Whereas if you're talking to the research councils, they want to make sure that what you're doing is going to lead to good science being done. So you have to be flexible and knowledgeable. And so after talking to a lot of people and thinking about what we wanted, we did our applications. We were rejected from the SPF. We later learned that the Canadian Funds for Innovation project failed. That wasn't only about the recovery system, it was about a lot of things. The research, the NSERC Research Through Innovation program was uncertain. But the SPF in particular was extremely helpful in giving us a way forward. They don't just, at least for us, they didn't just send back a letter saying, no, sorry. They said, no, sorry, because, and they gave a good list of reasons. Mainly, they thought that our faculty should give us more support, or at least our department as well should make it clear that the work that we were doing was worth continuing and supporting financially. They suggested firming up a little bit our justification for why helium recovery was the right solution. And they allowed us then to resubmit. And with that, with rewriting things, we were able to make a stronger case. We were also able to leverage the information from the SPF about our rejection to get the Faculty of Science to contribute money. We were able to say to them, look, the SPF, as JP pointed out, has a lot of cash, want to spend it on good projects, and we think that we can do it, but they want you to contribute. And the Faculty of Science said, okay, that makes sense. Here's some money. So leverage one thing against another. And we were at that point successful with the SPF, with the RTI as well. And then the Faculty of Science and Department of Chemistry contributions all together allowed us to put together a project that in total was about $450,000, a lot of money. I think actually that our recovery system inspired the big wave stream of SPF projects that's going now, because we were big, okay? They gave us above $200,000. That's a lot of money. But they saw that it fit in with the sustainability project theme, that it was going to be used for many years in the future. We should be able to move it to the Royal Victoria Hospital when in several years the Department of Chemistry moves. So it's not something that will be used just for a short time. The effects will be felt for a long time in the future. What we learned is that for all of our talking to people, we should have talked to even more people. Dealing with McGill facilities, as has been mentioned, is absolutely possible, but can be lengthy. And if we'd understood more about the electrical requirements for this project, we could have gotten the installation done sooner. Procurement was super helpful. We kind of didn't expect that in April of last year, we'd be able to go ahead with a huge purchase, but indeed we were. And a note about this, if anyone's planning on buying something large, talk to procurement at the beginning of the process. They can help you craft what's known as a call for tender, where you tell prospective suppliers what you want. If you phrase it properly, then they'll give a good proposal to supply what you want that really does meet your requirements. One thing that I now wish we had thought of was involving a student employee after installation to help document the project in terms of social media and so on, but also potentially on the technical side. It has been a big project. We're it's not fully up and running. We are getting some helium back, which is amazing, but not as much as we think we'll be able to get. And I think a dedicated engineering student, perhaps, who was able to look at the system and put time in would be really helpful for us. We didn't quite appreciate that. But I think that if at our planning stage, it could have happened that a student had talked to us and said, this is interesting. If we had looked for a student, there could have been some mileage there. So as has also been stated before, talk to staff members, talk to faculty. If you have time to make something better and they don't quite have time, but they're interested, then probably something can be done together. But overall, every time we wheel our own helium from the system that's shown to you to the magnet, instead of putting in a purchase order to buy more, it really does feel good. So we're very grateful to the SPF to making this happen. It's made a big difference to our facilities. So yeah, go for it. Whatever it is that you think can happen, it probably can. So that is helium recovery.
Thank you so much, Robin. That was really interesting. Can I just ask, from a student perspective, would you suggest that going on through like the SPF page and looking at the contacts for current projects is a good way to see what's going on? Do you have another suggestion as to, you know, like if a student is interested in getting involved in a project and wants to know what's happening on campus, are there other resources that a student could go to?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's a good question. Yeah, for sure. I mean, if somebody were to contact me now and say, this is neat, what can I do? My response would be, if you can fit it into a class project, that would be fantastic. Potentially we could hire you if we can get work study funding, because that would then subsidize it and the NMR facilities wouldn't have to pay so much. But yeah, back in the days when we were kind of planning it, how anybody would have known, no, I don't know. On our side, we could have talked more to classes. That would have been a good thing to do. But this sort of network that you're putting together perhaps has scope for this sort of thing, you know, where somebody wants to do something but doesn't know the right student to work with. Perhaps there's some mileage there.
Question. Yes, Robin, usually when I did the project with SPF was Sustainable Office were pushing me to get students involved in the project. Did you, did they?
We did. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
No, they did.
Okay.
And what we did for that, our instruments are used in teaching. So that was our main response, that we'll talk to students about this project when we do NMR experiments with teaching. Also, we make presentations in the world of chemistry class, chemistry of energy class, green chemistry class, that sort of thing. But yeah, I actually think they would have been really happy if we had had a student intern. If we had asked for that funding, probably they would have given it. And in retrospect, I wish we had. It seemed, I think, there's only so much time you have. And supervising a student can take quite a bit of time. So I guess we kind of didn't think that we would have that, but given that the project takes a lot of time anyway, it would have worked together quite nicely.
And just a quick question again, did you have a project manager from facilities on a project like that? I suppose with a number or something like that, or you were the project manager?
No, that's a good question. Our building manager, Jean-Marc Gauthier, the building manager for Automass and Pulp and Paper, which is where the instruments are and where the project is located.
But he was kind
of
basically
leader. Yeah, facilities did assign a project manager, I think, but
okay, that's okay.
Stuff happened for sure. Our contact was our building manager.
Okay, thanks.
All
I
right,
just had a
thanks a lot
quick,
for that. Yeah,
really
go
quick
for it.
question. Robin, apologies if you mentioned it, but what percentage of the helium were you able to recover in the end?
That's a good question. Over the past 6 months, we had it installed for about 6 months. We've purchased about half the helium that we had purchased in the previous 6-month period. And we have more optimization to do. So
That's
we're hoping
solid.
to get more. Yeah. Oh, it is
Wow.
absolutely. I mean, it's when we need helium now, we have it. We can plan, and our budget's looking much healthier. So we're doing better science. We're using less helium. It's great.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Oh, cool. Yeah, great. Jess, do you want to introduce the next speaker?
Yes. So next up, we have Teresa, who's working with the Green Labs Initiative at the Neuro, which is a student-led group dedicated to reducing the environmental impact of scientific research by advocating for infrastructural and cultural change. Their mission is to cultivate a community of sustainable scientists through education and awareness, and by targeting waste management, energy consumption, and carbon footprint within and outside the research lab. They aim to work with multiple stakeholders in order to connect grassroots movements with institutional priorities and resources.
Can I go? Thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for still being here at 7 p.m. I'm very happy to share our initiative with you. Let me see. Should be, oh yeah, I can share it. Let's see. All right. So as mentioned, I'm representing the Green Labs Initiative at the Neuro. So the Neuro is a neuroscience institute that conducts research associated with McGill. So I'm also a PhD student in neuroscience. And currently I'm the project manager for our initiative, as well as the co-founder and currently chair of the Green Labs Initiative at McGill. And I will tell you in a second how that looks like. So we were driven especially by McGill's research impact. We have many, many research centers across Montreal that are associated with McGill. About 900 research and teaching labs. These are not all wet labs that use chemicals and perform experiments in the lab space. But we have still quite a lot. We're about 400 or more wet labs up to date, and we have a quite big impact. Given the energy use, we're actually just occupying 17% of campus space, though we make up nearly 50% of all the energy use, because one lab alone consumes as much energy as 4 to 5 households, which is quite a big impact. And in addition, of course, we produce a lot of waste. For experiments, we have Petri dishes, tips, Falcon tubes, Appendorf tubes, many, many products that are especially made out of plastic and that are often not recycled because mostly people don't know what to do with it. Is it hazardous waste or is it not? And what needs to be done in order to eventually make it safe and recycle it. And we produce around 375 tons of glass and plastic per year at McGill alone, which was in a study in 2015. But given especially the last month of COVID, the use of single-use plastics increased drastically. So those numbers are quite outdated given the last 2 years of research, especially considering the additional use of masks, gloves, and so on. And of course, with a lot of shipping of lab products and other aspects, we have a large carbon footprint as well. So we started off to be driven by really those mountains of plastic waste that we produce every day. And we founded the Green Labs Initiative at the Neuro in about 2018. I joined a little bit later. And our focus is really to reduce those lab-based waste production and energy consumption especially. So what we're focusing on mainly is to engage different types of stakeholders at the Neuro, especially on an institutional level, but now reaching out across campus and working with different initiatives like Green Labs Initiative and different institutions, also university-wide. Awareness is key, education is key. It came up several times. If people don't know really what to do, they just won't do it. If they're not aware of a problem, they may not see it. So, which is why we try to create resources, share it with people, educate people, and build a very strong sustainability community in research areas. Since 2020, we started off forming different Green Labs initiatives across campus because we have so many departments that are split across whole McGill. For example, the Jewish Hospital, the Montreal General Hospital, the Neuro, everything in central campus. So we are quite split, which makes it easier to mainly work on an institutional level and then eventually communicate, facilitate, support each other in one big group. And so far we have quite some departments involved and roughly 70 members across McGill campus. We received SPF support. Gladly, right from the start, we were able to especially implement take-back programs, which are programs that take used gloves or pipette tip boxes, the racks where you stack in the pipettes, take it back and recycle those. Of course, we have certain things we need to consider, things like the gloves are not allowed to be in contact with bacteria, yeast, whatever potential biohazard waste could make it not easy to recycle. And we started off building a community. So we have ambassadors in different areas that started to report to us to collect numbers. And I actually just marked it down because Kirk was saying it in the beginning, numbers are key. If you wanted to start and get SPF support, try to get an idea about numbers. How much energy does your institute consume? How much waste do you produce? We started off to just take a few labs in the institute and just writing down what you order per week and how many bins are taken at the end of the day from the cleaning team. We also tried to implement something easy like a reusable container campaign. Go to your cafeteria next door and ask if you could just bring your container and advertise that. Usually people have plates, mugs, containers around that they can just use to pick up their food at the cafeteria. And we established a material swap room. It came up a little, quite often. Space is often difficult. We were lucky that we were able to find a very, very tiny room in the institute to bring materials that we're not using anymore. So older machines that got replaced, chemicals that you somehow don't need anymore for your experiment, you can bring it there and we have an online list of products that are available and other people can just take it. So it's a creative way of not accumulating too many things and also waste money, basically, because it may expire. We created things like an artist residency. So we made a sculpture out of lab waste and actually educated people around what lab waste we're creating and many, many other things. So we started off with very simple things. So it was easy to get funding and then collected the numbers that we needed to apply for an extension, which is one way of doing it. So we extended our sustainability project across 6 facilities and later on created the Green Labs Fund together with SPF to support many, many labs across campus to establish more sustainable changes. Many things helped us. So the funding, of course, you need money for certain things, but we are able to evoke change without a lot of money. For example, the material swap room is something quite easy to do. In our case, it was also, let me go back. fume hood stickers. Fume hoods actually make about 40% of all the energy you're using in the lab, because they're often kept open, even if people are not using it, which is consistently taking energy. Just by having a sticker there to show you how much money you would save closing the fume hood. This made quite a big impact, and was actually scary how many thousands of dollars you're actually saving per year per lab. So those easy things can help. You have to come up with something creative if you don't have funding yet. But the more you're talking to people, and this came up a couple of times, the easier it is to get easy ideas. Often people don't need a lot to be happy and to evoke change. We're very fortunate that we have many excited students to work with, and we're good in community building. We talked to a lot of people to support also the SPF application. We showed that there is an interest. And we created resources. We did research on what was done in other countries. Is there something like a Green Labs initiative already that accumulated data, even if we could not yet get any numbers? And we tried to get support from our institute and from ambassadors across campus. For sure, there are many barriers as well that we faced, and you see the slide is full of it. COVID is just one impact with many, many things. People don't want to sit anymore in front of the computer. Communication is difficult. Also, we have a student turnover. We're a nearly completely student-run initiative. And for us, it's actually very, very difficult to get staff involved, because for most of the people, it involves a lot of change, a lot of change of habit. So cleaning additionally plastic products to make them recyclable takes more time. Eventually, if you have an autoclave to sterilize your products, they fill up very quickly. People are fighting for space. You eventually have to purchase more sustainable product. Maybe they're more expensive. So it takes quite some change where the staff especially is not that happy with, because it leads to an increase in costs as well. And we're very decentralized. So we have so many research institutions across whole McGill and whole Montreal that it is very difficult to just go and talk to people in other institutes. Also, every institute might be run differently, especially if it's associated with a hospital. We have different facility managements. We have different cleaning companies and cleaning schedules. So if we evoke one change in the neuro, that doesn't mean that any other facility does the same. So it gets quite complex in this. And for sure, engaging long-term staff is difficult given the high turnover. So things keep changing all the time and become inconsistent because maybe a lab manager does not left and the new one does not teach students how to behave sustainably. So a little bit of advice for within your group, try to define roles. It sounds quite simple, but if you do not assign specific tasks to people, maybe just no one does it because they don't know that it is their role. And we saw that. So we had one or two people always engaging, proposing meetings to really meet up and discuss things, because other people may not feel responsible to initiate those actions. Try to find your way of communication. We use Slack a lot as a platform, but whatever works for you. Externally, educate yourself about your institute or your playground where you want to establish your initiative, especially when it comes to administration. Who is responsible for what? Who can you ask? Who can you engage? And who could you ask alternatively? We learned working with biohazard waste management or hazardous waste management, phone calls are key. They're so overrun with many things. They do not read their emails eventually. We're not priority for them, but we are dependent on them. Phone calls do it. Documentation is key, not just collecting numbers, but also really write down your ideas, write down your progress. Looking back on those notes can actually really help you reflect positively what you reached, what you performed, but also where there are things that you may have to work on again. And try to consider next steps early. Apply for additional funding very early. And try to already, if you know that there will be a turnover in staff that you need to work with, try to engage them as early as you can. Oh yeah, so just contact information. We are always searching for great, motivated people, especially when it comes to bothering administration, which is probably one of our biggest barriers. So don't feel shy.
Thank you so much, Teresa. That was really interesting. There seems to be a common pattern between Recycling Pioneers and your Green Labs initiatives about conducting a lot of research to understand, as you say, the playground before you go on and start a project. So that was really interesting. We've got one more speaker. Jess, I'll pass it on to you.
Yes, so next up we have Martin, who has done work with the new trail at Galt Nature Reserve. In the summer of 2018, the new local access trail was developed on the base of an old well-known trail, and the addition of a secondary access allows direct access to the Galt Trail system from downtown Mont Saint-Hilaire and favors active transport. And I'll now let Martin tell you more about that.
Yes, thank you. I'm gonna start by a small video that's gonna show the project we worked on in 2018. I think it's gonna give you a pretty good idea of the project. Let me share my screen with the video. Won't be long. Hold on, the video is here. Oh. Here. So everyone can see the video. Can you hear the video also?
Welcome to McGill's Galt Nature Reserve.
That's good.
Our mission is quite simple, to find a balance between conservation, research, and education. And of course, we want to share this beautiful mountain with the community. We have about 300,000 visitors annually. About 50,000 of these visitors access the mountain through an unofficial access point near downtown Mount Saint-Hilaire. It's a very fragile area with a stream and an ancient forest. To ensure the conservation of this exceptional place, the administration would like to upgrade this area to make it an official entry point. The Mount Saint-Hilaire Nature Centre works in partnership with McGill University to protect the surrounding mountain and other natural environments in the region. Over the years, the centre has acquired land around the Galt Nature Reserve. All these acquisitions help protect the natural environment that gives access to the reserve and increase the number of trails around the reserve for the benefit of the citizens. The existing trail was degraded and was very wide, more than 15 meters in some parts. There were many rock steps that were unstable and no longer safe. There were also many signs of major erosion, such as exposed roots. The trail was poorly defined because it followed the shoreline of the stream, and much of it fell into the stream. With the help of the Office of Sustainability at McGill, the reserve started a project to improve local access. This project met two important objectives: to stop degradation of the region and to encourage visitors to walk, bicycle, or use public transport to come to visit the reserve. The town of Mount St. Hilaire is a partner in a project to promote healthy habits for its citizens. This way, the residents can benefit from the trails at the reserve by leaving their vehicles at home. This access point will link the mountain experience to the river by going through Mount St. Hilaire's downtown. The challenges of population growth and the scarcity of natural environments in urbanized areas are creating increasing pressure on natural ecosystems. This project brings together better protection of the sector while promoting use of alternative transportation, making it a key element in managing the public space into the future.
Good. So everyone saw the video, good, with the sound and everything? Okay. So a project like that, it seems easy in a 5 minutes video, but just to be honest, it took me about 5 years just to convince everyone to get on board, every stakeholder, to be able to open a new access at the Galt Nature Reserve. For those who don't know the Galt Nature Reserve, it's under the Faculty of Science. It's a research field station open to the public, and we have about 25 kilometers of trails over there. And with the help of sustainability in 2018, we were able to, like the video said, redo the trail. Like everyone, I think Teresa, you said it a few minutes ago. Matrix is very important. At the beginning of the project, to get everyone on board, I was like, everyone was saying, oh, there's about 10% of the visitors who comes from that illegal entrance, and after we put a eco counter on the trail, you know, a hidden eco counter, so we can count all the numbers of visitors coming by that entrance, and we discovered that we had about 25% of all the visitors coming by that entrance. So with figures like that, it was much more easier for me to get everyone on board with the project. So so very important, you know, like a stakeholder like the Dean of Science, you know, having letters of support, you know, the city of Mont Saint Hilaire, our conservation, the nature center, the conservation you know, partner who signed also a letter for engagement for a project like that. So and at the beginning we hired also interns, and we did some survey at the beginning of the project to see what was the habit of people. And I think everyone, when we work into sustainable development, we have to change culture. That's one of the most, I think, hard things to do. Change habit of people. Instead of taking your car, go to the main entrance, use that access, you know, leave your car at home. Or so we did at the beginning a survey, and now in 2021 we're supposed to do another survey just to see if habits change about people. But with the COVID, everything, the figures change a lot. We were not able to do the survey in 2021. We're gonna do it probably next year, but what can I tell you? It's funny to see reality versus, you know, when we plan something and we see reality after. It's always there's always a big gap, you know, in between what we think operation will look like and what is the reality. Like we at the beginning we were expecting that almost 50% of the people were taking their car to use that access. But when we do the first survey, we realized about 70% of people were using, even if they took neighborhood access, local entrance, even that people, a large amount of people use their car, you know, to go over there. So so this is not so easy to change. What else? Yeah. we have the chance to be able to get staff. You know, we have operation funding coming from the entrance because we charge an entrance fee at Gall. So with that money, it's easier for us, you know, to have operation budget to be able to put staff over there and do the maintenance of the project. I think this is one of the most challenging things for project, a sustainable project, because year after year you need money and you need to pursue the project, and that's not so easy for us. It was quite successful, and I was looking to the figures this afternoon. 2019 and 20, we had about 60,000 visit over there. When I say visit, just people going in the reserve from that access, and last year were about 100,000 people going by that access. That's quite challenging for us. Even with COVID, I realized that people trails are getting wider because people don't want to be too close from each other. So we're getting in trouble with that, and we're gonna have to put more money on the trails and close trails, do a naturalization, and so every year we hired interns to help us on that project. Do you have any question, or that's about it for? I didn't prepare anything very.
I think one person on the chat had asked for the trail name.
The trail name, it's the in English, in French it's l'accès local. In English, it's the neighborhood access. Yeah. It's really like students. When students want to come to Gall, they can take, you know, the bus from Longueuil to the 200 bus from Longueuil, go directly to the Gall Nature Reserve, and you can hike from. It's a 3 minutes walk from the bus stay. When you drop off the bus, you take the street, and you directly are in the middle of the reserve. Yeah. That was one of the major, you know, there's always when you do a SPF project, there's a community. I don't remember what was all the objective of the SPF, but one of the objective is connectivity. So this is one of the big argue I had to be able to get funding for that project. Yeah.
I think we have one raised hand. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
As I understand in the video, is it that before the trail was implemented, there were illegal people coming through that engine?
But the thing is that since ever, people from the downtown of Mont-Saint-Hilaire was using that kind of natural path. You know, you have like two big hills, Dieppe and Pain-Sucre. So naturally, people were walking along the stream, and there was nothing officially defined. But you know, and maybe 40 years from now, it was not a problem because we had not so many people in the area. But right now, you know, like what the suburb is growing always from Montreal. We're so close from Montreal also, so there's more and more people on the South Shore. So so the capacity of the trail was not enough, you know, for that amount of people right now. So yeah. And now since last year, we have full-time people working over there. So we having people over there, you know, we have no more dog coming in. We have no more, you know, people who come to do parties and fires and camping and stuff like that, you know. So protecting a natural area close to a urbanized area, that's quite a challenging for us. Yeah.
And it says on your website that it is a private reserve.
Sorry?
It says on the website that it is a private reserve.
Yeah, but it's owned by McGill. It was donated by to McGill in 1958 by Monsieur Andrew Hamilton Gall, but it's a private land, so it's under the Ministère de l'Environnement du Québec. It's the designation is a réserve naturelle en milieu privé, so nature reserve and private nature reserve. I don't know if somebody can translate that for me.
You've done a great job of it.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
it's more independently managed rather than private. No.
No, but it's really it's not the a provincial park, so it's private land, private land, but under it's an agreement with the Ministère de l'Environnement and McGill. That exactly.
Okay, and my last question would be, I wonder if I understand the video correctly. So by implementing the entrance, the official entrance, the project allows easier mobility for people to come through the reserve, but the entrance, the big difference between now and then is the fee, the entrance fee, and how do you find that entrance fee would pose any barriers to visitors or even people who have been living there for many years?
But we have entrance fee like in provincial park, but most of we have about 12,000 people who have an annual pass. So people live close to the reserve. They pay for an annual pass and they can come whenever they want. Under our regulation. But the main point is the main entrance we have. It's like 7 kilometers from downtown Mont-Saint-Hilaire. So everyone who wants to have a hike in the nature, they have to take their car from home, going over there, while in their backyard, they have a really cool access. This is why we were able to sell the project, so people can leave their car at home and just take a walk and have access to the Galt Nature Reserve in their backyard, because the local access is really like close to the grocery store and really close from everything, because the way it was the way it was since ever, the main entrance, it's completely on the opposite side of the mountain. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But
Thank you so much.
this give you another perspective of SPF. Also, staff, we can apply on these wonderful grants. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Martin. Thanks to all the speakers. We are a little bit over time. I apologize for that. And thanks for sticking around, guys. We will wrap up. Before we do, are there any burning questions for any of our speakers or questions from the speakers? No, all good. Okay, so we will post a link to registration for the incubator project at the RSN. However, after this meeting, what we're going to do is we're going to send a follow-up email with some more information about the incubator. I know I gave you guys a very brief summary at the beginning, but we'll give you a better breakdown of it by email. Feel free to share the initiative with your friends, see if you can get other people involved. We do really want this to be a group project. And we were happy to start in January with a single group. So we don't need, the big numbers, but it would be nice to get people who are really motivated and have all kinds of different areas of expertise and a wide range of interests, as the participants tonight have had. We will also reach out in January, once again, just a reminder, for a sort of meet and greet event. So we've got that to look forward to. And before we leave you, we're just going to do an acknowledgement of land. Kwong will do that for us. He's the co-president of RSN. Are you happy to go ahead?
Thanks, Olivia. So doing this a little bit individually by on the end, just because we realize that a lot of that acknowledgement in the event and then to get it afterwards. So just make it as smooth as possible. That's kind of but essentially, yeah, so McGill's University is on the land. Set up meeting and exchange with people. The Polish and so we just want to acknowledge and thank the diverse indigenous people whose presence in our territory, which we have.
Thank you for that, Kwong. Unfortunately, I think the volume was a bit off, but thanks anyways. Great. Well, thanks so much for being there, guys, for taking the time to participate tonight. All the projects were really interesting. I'm sure everyone would agree. And yeah, as we've said, we'll follow up. And good luck with the rest of the semester if you are a student, and good luck in the future if you're one of the speakers tonight.